This is truly a mark of Mother Nature. I'm at Brick Pit Espresso out in the courtyard, and I'm just admiring these coffee trees that we've got planted here. Some of you might not know that we've planted these for about 2 years now. We have had some successes and some failures, and this year we've got a pretty solid selection of fruit growing. So this right here along the node of the tree is the coffee cherries, and inside these cherries, the fruit here, once they fully ripened, are the seeds, or what people call the coffee beans. So this one up the back here starting to get nice red and ripe, and come December I think it's going to be time to pick properly. But there's one right up the top here which kind of looks quite red. I might just pluck that one off, and that's kind of the color that we're looking for. So this one's ripened ahead of time. Let's take it inside and run some experiments. So here we have a selection of coffee cherries that I've taken from the trees outside. So here we have a very underripe and very green coffee cherry. As you can see, it also hasn't fully matured in size compared to these other ones along here. So now it's starting to get, quite larger, but still very green. And then with this one here, you can see that it's starting to tip that red ripening color. And that's a sign that the sugars in the plant are really starting to get to their sweet nature. Now, if I'm honest, I think this one's probably still a little bit underripe, but we are in September, and I think we're probably looking like here that our trees are going to be fully ripe in late November, mid-November, sometime like that. So hopefully we can harvest a good amount of cherries and make some cups of coffee from them. We'll call it maybe Casa de Brick Pit or Finca de Brick Pit. So interestingly, we've got our roasted coffee beans here. Now, it takes 190 coffee beans to make 24 grams, which is our standard dose that we use in our portafilter baskets to make one large 12-ounce coffee. Or most coffees that we do, we use 24 grams. So 190 coffee beans. So for a 24-gram dose, we have 190 coffee beans. So we get 2 coffee beans or seeds per cherry. So 190 divided by 2, that's 95 cherries we have to pick to make 1 cup of coffee. So that's a lot of work. So if you think about that, how many trees coffee farmers must have to supply just one cafe with all of their beans for the entire year, it's a vast number. So let's cut one of these open and see what's inside. So there we have it. That is a pretty decent cross section of a coffee cherry. So here we have the outer skin, and then we have the pulp here. And that pulp, we dry that off to make cascara. And that cascara makes a beautiful fruit-like tea, which is still quite caffeinated and kind of tastes like a berry juice. And you can see this like liquid that's coming off. That's the sugars, the carbohydrate sugars that are coming off the cherry. And when people say that, coffee beans are inherently sweet, that's what we're talking about. This here, this juice, this liquid is honey sweet. So as you can see here, I got lucky on this time, I'm not gonna lie. We can clearly see 2 beans inside this cherry. So once again, we have the outer skin, the pulp, and then this around here, this gooey stuff is called muselage, and that muselage is really what then dries into the bean to really give the coffee that accentuated berry character, those really deep, gelatinous mouthfeels and all that beautiful natural body. And then we have here, which is kind of like a little tiny shell that you can see that there's actually two different colors. There's that like kind of khaki greenish color. That's actually the bean. But outside that kind of almost see-through shell is actually called the parchment. So that shell is what we dry the coffees in normally. So a little bit about processing is there's a few classic traditional styles. Number one, we could let the coffee fully mature on a tree and even go to like a raisin on a tree, and that's called a black natural. And when you see on our bags, sometimes we write natural, and that's what natural means. It's naturally sun-dried. Sometimes there's variations in the coffee industry where they might pick that cherry and then dry it either on a patio or a raised bed. Another processing style is one where we will pick the coffees red, not too dissimilar to this one. Take the coffee bean out, leave it in its parchment, and then dry that with that muselage on it. And that's what we call a honey process, or a pulped natural process. And then we have on the other extreme a washed process. And what a washed is where we once again get the ripe cherry like this, take the beans out in parchment, and then we put them into water, just like a water tank, for between 24 to 48 hours on average. And the coffee is fermenting in that water, and then it gets washed with water after that again, and then dried on a patio. All coffee beans are generally brought to between 10 and 14% moisture before they're then roasted and sold. So it's really interesting the different variations that we can go on with getting the beans out of the fruit, out of the cherry, and then into the green brokers and then to the roasters. Another variation that there is called a semi-washed, which is, so we'll take the cherry, red, take the beans out, and just wash them ever so lightly to leave still a lot of the muselage, that kind of gooiness on the parchment there. We want to leave a lot of that gooiness on the parchment, and we're not really washing it that much. We'll probably only wash it for an hour and then dry it. So we're trying to, affect the coffee in different ways to really control the body and the acid and the syrupiness and the sweetness of the coffee. Coffee really is amazing that way, that all of these processes are done naturally by Mother Nature, and only affected by fermentation by human beings. So there you have it. Whilst Kirrawee Brick Pit is definitely not the ideal environment for growing coffee cherries, coffee beans, coffee plant, it's still a fun exercise that we're going to experiment with. I'm certain that the quality is going to be nowhere near what our coffees that we purchase properly is, but definitely a learning experience for us and the team, and I hope maybe we can even share some with you. This is truly a mark of Mother Nature. In just 1 week, look at how many more red cherries we've got. 1, 2, 3, 10, 20. 2 months' time, we're going to be drinking some coffee.